The ambience of the high-end restaurant was meticulously curated to soothe and impress. Soft, golden lighting, delicate music playing in the background, and tables draped in pristine white linens. Yet, amidst this carefully orchestrated calm, an undercurrent of tension seemed almost palpable. Patrons, dressed in their finest, chatted amiably, unaware of the undercurrents shifting beneath the surface of the seemingly serene setting. At his secluded corner table, a situation was quietly unfolding. A waiter, his expression a mix of disdain and impatience, stood slightly too close to one of the guests, a guest whose face was partially obscured by the dim lighting. The waiter's voice was low but sharp, his words not quite audible to the other diners, yet his body language spoke volumes. The guest, meanwhile, maintained a composed demeanor, nodding politely yet with a tightening around the eyes that hinted at a brewing storm. This was no ordinary evening out. Something was amiss, and the tension was only beginning to build. The guest in question was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, internationally renowned for his roles in blockbuster films, and a former professional wrestler beloved by millions. Known for his charismatic, affable nature and towering presence, Johnson was uncharacteristically subdued this evening. He was here not just for a quiet dinner, but to evaluate the service and operation of his newest investment. A luxury restaurant discreetly added to his expansive business portfolio. As the evening progressed, it became increasingly apparent that Johnson was being singled out, though subtly, by the waiter serving his table. The service was slow, and the waiter's tone bordered on disrespectful, a stark contrast to the impeccable standard the establishment was known for. Glasses remained unfilled, and orders were mixed up. Small mistakes accumulated into a pattern that was hard to dismiss as mere coincidence. Unbeknownst to the waiter, Johnson's presence was not merely as a celebrity diner, but as the owner, a fact known only to the restaurant's manager and not disclosed to the staff to ensure unbiased treatment. This anonymity was now serving as an unintended test of the restaurant's quality of service, revealing flaws Johnson had never anticipated encountering. The growing problem was not just the declining service, but the underlying attitude of one staff member who seemed determined to mar the reputation of what should have been a flawless evening. The waiter, Eric Cartwright, had a complex history and motivations that few could immediately discern. In his late 30s, Eric had been in the hospitality industry for over a decade. He had climbed the ranks from a busboy to a waiter in some of the city's most prestigious eateries, gaining experience and harboring a growing resentment towards his affluent clientele. Eric's past was marked by personal disappointments and professional setbacks, which had embittered him against those he perceived to have had an easier path in life. Unknown to anyone in his current environment, Eric had faced significant financial struggles, exacerbated by a failed investment in a small catering business. This failure left him deeply in debt and struggling to support his family, fueling a disdain for the wealthy and successful, individuals he believed were oblivious to the hardships faced by others. His job at the restaurant was a means to an end, a way to keep financially afloat while masking his growing contempt. Eric's motivation for targeting Dwayne Johnson stemmed from a mistaken belief. He assumed Johnson was just another pampered celebrity, unaware of his true identity as the owner. Eric saw an opportunity to subtly sabotage Johnson's evening as a misguided outlet for his frustrations, projecting his resentments onto a man he wrongfully judged as just another entitled figure. The incidents became less subtle and more direct as the dinner service progressed. Eric's behavior escalated from mere negligence to pointed rudeness. When Johnson politely inquired about the delay in serving their main course, Eric responded with a curt, "It will arrive when it's ready," followed by a dismissive wave of his hand. The restaurant manager observed this exchange from a distance, raising the first real clue that something was amiss. After picking up on the increasing hostility, Johnson began scrutinizing Eric's actions and the entire service crew's responses. His acute observational skills, honed through years of navigating complex social situations in the entertainment industry, allowed him to notice minor inconsistencies in the service. Other staff members seemed tense and wary around Eric, hinting at a broader issue of morale or leadership within the team. Meanwhile, the manager, sensing the potential fallout from having a high-profile guest like Johnson receive poor service, closely watched Eric. She noticed other small but significant signs. Eric avoiding eye contact, his forced politeness with other guests, and his reluctance to engage with his colleagues. These behaviors contrasted sharply with the establishment standards, suggesting that Eric's issues might impact his professional performance. The evening was drawing to a close, and Johnson, ever the strategist, decided to gather more information before making any decisions. His experience in wrestling and acting taught him the value of patience and the importance of gathering all facts before confronting an adversary. As the dessert was finally served, Johnson prepared himself for a discreet conversation with the manager, intent on uncovering the full extent of the night's irregularities. As the tension in the restaurant builds, let's take a moment to pause the unfolding drama. If you're captivated by this tale of intrigue and subtle confrontations, consider subscribing to receive more stories like this. Your engagement helps bring more such narratives to light. Now, ponder these questions as the story continues. What do you think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's next move should be? How will he address the situation without revealing his identity? What might be the consequences for Eric if his behavior is reported? Stay tuned, and let's see how this evening unravels. Will Johnson's approach to handling this delicate situation be direct, or will he employ his famed strategic thinking to resolve the conflict subtly? As Johnson awaited the opportunity to speak with the manager, his thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the dessert. This meticulously plated chocolate fondant looked as perfect as the restaurant's reputation. Despite the appealing presentation, Johnson's mind was not on the food, but on the complexities of the situation unfolding around him. He felt a mix of frustration and empathy, understanding that while Eric's behavior was unacceptable, it might stem from deeper, unresolved issues. The tension escalated when a nearby table, having overheard some of Eric's comments, began murmuring about the unexpected service lapses. Their whispers grew louder, and they discussed bringing this to the manager's attention. Johnson noted this development, realizing that the situation could quickly spiral out of control if not handled delicately. Eric, meanwhile, seemed increasingly agitated. His movements were brisk, and his responses to other tables were clipped and devoid of the usual warmth expected in such an establishment. Observing this, Johnson's doubts about confronting Eric grew. He began considering the potential repercussions for Eric and his family if this incident led to a public scandal or job loss. Johnson's internal conflict deepened as he thought about his path to success, which was marked by public scrutiny and personal challenges. He knew the impact of negative publicity all too well and understood the weight of his subsequent actions. He felt torn between addressing the immediate wrongs and mitigating long-term damage to Eric, who might simply be having a bad day or dealing with personal issues unknown to the onlookers. Amid these considerations, Johnson's phone vibrated discreetly. Glancing at the screen, he saw a text from a close friend and confidant who happened to be dining at the other end of the restaurant. The friend had noticed the tension and offered support, asking if everything was all right. Johnson replied with a non-committal message, requesting a quick meet-up outside the dining area to discuss the situation privately. Stepping away from his table under the pretense of taking a call, Johnson met with his friend in the dimly lit corridor adjacent to the restrooms. The two exchanged quick greetings before diving into a hushed, intense conversation. Johnson outlined the situation, expressing his reluctance to escalate matters and his responsibility to uphold the standards of his business. His friend, who is experienced in crisis management, suggested a discreet approach, advising Johnson to gather more information before taking any public action. They discussed offering Eric a chance to explain his side of the story privately, perhaps revealing issues that could be resolved internally rather than through punitive measures. Returning to his table with a new plan in mind, Johnson felt a mix of determination and anxiety. He invited Eric for a private conversation at the end of his shift, offering an opportunity for openness and resolution. This approach would not only prevent a scene but also align with Johnson's values of fairness and support for his employees. regardless of their position. As the evening drew close, Johnson prepared for the delicate task ahead. The other diners continued their meals, oblivious to the undercurrents affecting their night out. Johnson's presence, usually a cause for celebration, had tonight become a catalyst for a potentially transformative confrontation, hidden from the public eye, but crucial for the integrity of his business and the well-being of his staff. As the restaurant began to empty, Dwayne Johnson sat contemplating his next move. His decision to confront Eric privately was solidified by his principles of leadership and compassion, but the weight of the situation did not escape him. He'd understood that the outcomes of this conversation could profoundly impact Eric's life, career, and the restaurant's culture. As he waited for the right moment, Johnson observed Eric completing his duties, his interactions with other staff now seemingly more strained than before. The environment was thick with unspoken tensions. Johnson's keen sense of observation picked up on subtleties that others might miss, a slight hesitation and a quick frown, all adding layers to the narrative he was piecing together. Finally, the moment came. The restaurant's manager discreetly informed Eric that Johnson wished to speak with him privately. Eric's confusion and slight fear were evident as he wiped his hands on his apron and followed the manager to the private dining room where Johnson awaited. "Eric, please have a seat," Johnson began, his voice calm but firm. "I've noticed some things tonight that concern me, and I'd like to understand from your perspective what's been going on." Eric, clearly nervous, took a moment before responding. "Mr. Johnson, I'm not sure what you mean. I've just been doing my job." Johnson nodded, a gentle yet probing approach in his eyes. "I understand it's been a busy night, but it's more about how you've been doing your job, Eric. I've observed some interactions that didn't quite meet the standard we pride ourselves on here." As the conversation unfolded, Eric's initial defensiveness gave way to resignation and unexpectedly to an outpouring of personal challenges. He revealed his recent financial troubles and the pressure it had put on him. Johnson listened intently, his experiences with hardships lending him empathy toward Eric's situation. During this exchange, a crucial discovery was made, not by Johnson, but by Eric himself. As Johnson shared his story of overcoming obstacles and believing in second chances, Eric realized that the man he had been inadvertently targeting was not only the owner, but someone who had faced his struggles and emerged stronger. This revelation marked a turning point in their conversation. Johnson's approach, combining authority with genuine concern, allowed Eric to reflect on his actions and their potential consequences for himself, the team, and the guests. "Eric, I believe in learning from mistakes, not being defined by them," Johnson said, his tone encouraging yet serious. "But I also believe in accountability. You've been given a responsibility here, to uphold our standards and treat each guest with respect. Can you tell me what we can do to help you meet that responsibility?" This question sparked a pivotal moment of self-reflection for Eric. He recognized that his actions were a plea for help masked by resentment and frustration. Faced with Johnson's unexpected understanding and offer of support, Eric felt a mixture of relief and guilt. He suggested a few practical steps he could take, such as attending anger management sessions and financial counseling, which the restaurant could assist with as part of its commitment to staff welfare. Johnson agreed to these steps, emphasizing the importance of community and support for the business. "We're a team, Eric. We win together, and we solve problems together. Let's use this as an opportunity to grow, not just for you but for all of us." The meeting concluded with a mutual understanding that the road ahead would require commitment and change. Eric expressed his gratitude for the chance to make amends, profoundly impacted by Johnson's leadership style, firm yet compassionate, expecting high standards while providing the support necessary to achieve them. As Eric left the room, a weight lifted from his shoulders. Johnson sat back, reflecting on the evening's events. He had turned a potential crisis into a leadership lesson, not just for Eric but for himself. The challenges of managing a diverse team with complex personal lives were evident, but so was the capacity for empathy and transformation within the framework of business success. Though private and unseen by the world, this encounter was a defining moment for both men. For Johnson, It reaffirmed his commitment to his values in business operations. For Eric, it was a crucial step toward personal and professional redemption. The resolution of this tension prevented a possible public relations disaster and strengthened the fabric of the restaurant's culture, making it more resilient and understanding. The weeks following the private meeting saw subtle but significant changes within the restaurant. Taking to heart the second chance he had been given, Eric began to show improvements in his demeanor and interactions with colleagues and guests. The staff also noticed a difference, feeling more supported and less tense, which improved the overall atmosphere and service quality. Dwayne Johnson's decision to handle the situation with empathy and firmness resolved a potential conflict and enhanced team morale and cohesion. Johnson regularly checked with the restaurant manager to monitor progress and ensure the new support measures were effective. He was pleased to learn that Eric was actively participating in the counseling sessions and had even started mentoring new staff members, sharing his experiences and lessons learned. This transformation had a ripple effect, encouraging a culture of openness and support among the entire team. The restaurant's reputation for excellent service was soon restored, with guests leaving rave reviews about the attentive staff and welcoming environment. Johnson felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that his intervention had led to positive outcomes, reaffirming his commitment to compassionate leadership. As the story of that fateful evening remained confined to those who experienced it, the lessons it imparted were far-reaching. Johnson knew that the true mark of business success wasn't just profitability, but the ability to positively influence lives and foster a supportive community. Johnson's handling of the situation also gave him valuable insights into his leadership style and the dynamics of running a service-based business. He understood the impact of personal issues on professional performance and the importance of addressing such problems with compassion and practical support. The restaurant continued to thrive, and its staff was more motivated and unified than ever, embodying the values that Johnson himself lived by. For his part, Eric became an advocate for mental health and financial planning within the community, driven by his own experiences and the second chance he had received. This story, a blend of celebrity influence, personal struggle, and transformative leadership, powerfully reminds us of the potential for redemption and growth in adversity. If you found this narrative engaging and are interested in more stories that blend suspense with real-life lessons, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support enables us to continue bringing these rich, character-driven narratives to life. Join us as we explore more stories that inspire, challenge, and entertain. Thank you for being part of this journey.